Hello, I'm Brian and I'm the Theoretical Gamer. This is an interesting thing about good and bad role playing and how bad role players can be trained to be bad role players. Now, this isn't like this is usually during the early years of role playing and the earliest formative experiences, usually when you're a teenager or younger. When you think you're a grown-up, but really you're being shaped by your experiences more than you realize. So imagine this. You got a group of people around, and you're starting up a game, and one guy decides, everyone, and you've just finished up your first campaign where you've just learned to play, and and it was brief, but it was fun, and you've gone on dungeon crawls, and you fought monsters, and you got treasure, and you did all the stuff that you do in D&D in that first campaign. You're exploring the system, you're exploring the characters, what you can do, what you can't, and it's really, really awesome. So you're coming up with a new game, and your character is like, okay, I really want to get my character interesting. And one guy says, okay, my character is from the village where we're starting out, and he's got a sister that he feels very protective of. Says, okay, that's cool, that sounds interesting, yeah. And the other one says, okay, my character owns a bar. He owns a tavern, the inn, and he doesn't want to, he's thinking, okay, the inn is a really great place to be a base of operations. He can go on an adventure and just leave his brother in charge or something, and then come back later, and they always have a place to stay and regroup and make plans, and that's their center of operations. Instead of just being like homeless. The term that I've heard to describe a lot of D&D groups is murder hobos. They're basically a group of hobos that wander from place to place, murdering people and taking their stuff, and then moving on to the next place. But this place would be something different. Let's have our own base of operations, so we're not bums. And the game master's like, oh, these things are great. And then they get there, and they sit down at the first session, and within the first half hour, the bar is burned to the ground, the sister is murdered, and the rest of the campaign proceeds as per spec. They go to the dungeon, they fight the monsters, and the players quickly learn, don't do that. Don't create NPCs that you feel attached to. Don't own anything that you aren't prepared to lose instantly. And the funny thing is the game master probably wasn't even being malicious. He just probably didn't know what to do with those things. He was like, what? Okay, well, let's get rid of these things that are tying these guys down so we can get back to actually playing. Yeah. But 10 years later, the players have learned not to form attachments, which kills a lot of drama. It's I've even heard stories. I heard on forums and stuff about players who, whenever possible, according to the setting, will always play a time traveler from the future who has come back to the present day and, due to his actions, has changed history so that his personal future no longer exists. In other words, whenever possible, we'll play a character who literally has no connection to anyone in the world. They don't have and it's not just, even if the game master doesn't kill them off, the first thing he does is, okay, your brother is kidnapped and you have to go rescue him. Okay, which basically makes the character feel like a chump for even including these things, because they're just used as leverage against him. That's not to say that those things are completely off the table. You can do that, but if it's the first and only thing that is done, you quickly learn not to give your character any connection to the world, because they will be used against you. They will be used to hurt you. Side note, in 1994, in the comic book Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner had just been given the mantle of Green Lantern. He'd just been given the power ring. And he had a girlfriend named Alex DeWitt, who was shaping up to be an interesting and strong-willed character. And everyone seemed, oh, yeah, she's cool. So naturally, the first thing that the writer did with her was have a villain kill her and stuff her in the refrigerator for the Green Lantern to discover. Now, I don't think he really needed the "my girlfriend is dead" motivation in order to be the Green Lantern. He had been chosen by the Guardians of Oa. He had the right stuff. It wasn't necessary. I think it was really a case of the writer not knowing what to do with a girlfriend. I think that a lot of writers who start on Superman for the first time kind of wish they could bump off Lois Lane. Because what do you do with her? You know? They know how to write villains. They know how to have the villain threaten the world and then Superman fights him and that's it. It's bad writing, but yeah. What do you do with Lois Lane? What do you do with the happy girlfriend who is strong-willed and a supporting character? And sexism aside, and there is some sexism there, you get bad game mastering where they don't know what to do with a character. They don't know how to make him interesting. You know, frankly, I might have trouble with it too. Which brings me to another type of role player. You got the Munchkins, you got the game, you got the rules lawyers. This is a type of character, a type of player rather, that I call the burn victim. What is the burn victim, you say? The burn victim is someone who has been burned, metaphorically, by one of the other types to the point where he can't even enjoy playing anymore. For instance, if you have a player who has been burned by the game master killing off any NPCs, then you get a guy who obsessively creates time travelers from the future. If you have a character who has been burned by railroading, it's like he gets in there and he's continually, you can see him, like the second he sits down, he gets twitchy. He's like, all right, you walk into the tavern and the bartender says, you know, I heard a rumor. He goes, oh yeah, here it comes. Here comes the adventure. Here comes the start of the tracks. We're just going to have to go on this adventure, aren't we? Well, no, you can ignore it. There's other. Okay, yeah, and we're just going to have to follow the numbers and connect the dots. And why don't you just write it down and have us read your novel afterwards? And it doesn't matter if that's what you were trying to do. If any hint of plot will set him off. If you have, and game masters can be burn victims too. It's like if you're running, say, Rifts, where you have like all this high tech and cyborging and magic and all this to run together, it'd be like, the game master will be like, okay, well, let's start our Rifts game, and a player says, you know, I'd like to play a full conversion board. You know, the guy who has basically just nothing much more than a brain and a huge tank of a robot body. And the game master's like, oh, I bet you'd like that. I bet you'd like just being this massive tank rolling over everything I try to send at you. He goes, well, no, I just thought it would be interesting to portray a man who traded his humanity for, oh, yeah, okay, you can play that, but he's lost both his legs and half his armor and all of his weapons. He has to drag himself around by his arms. Yeah, do you like that? He goes, actually, that sounds like an interesting role-playing shop. Stop trying to ruin my game, Munchkin! The burn victim. Or sometimes you'll hear the stories of the NPCs, where the game master will create a character who is obviously his avatar, his PC. And it's not just a prominent NPC or an important NPC. It's the game master thinks of it as his character and then totally favors him and makes him walk around, stride the world like a colossus, and everyone loves him. It's like almost a GM Mary Sue type character who is perfect and can do no wrong, and he stands there baffled that all the player characters hate him. You know, like, don't you want to follow him around and watch him do great things? He might even let you help. You know, and those are terrible, and we can talk about that another time. But a burn victim who has been burned one too many times by that might start attacking every NPC who has a name just because he thinks that this character is going to take over, right? Burn victims, I'm talking about the extreme cases. It's one thing to be wary of such things. It's another thing to let it ruin your game. And I think a lot of it happens like when you're young and you're shaped by your experiences, and you can't let it go. And then you grow up and you become a prideful nerd and think, not now on some level you take pride in spotting these things, so that's your only grim pleasure. Anyways, again, these are just random thoughts, and feel free to chip in on your thoughts or disagreements. Or, I mean, do you catch yourself being a burn victim at all? What advice do you have for making NPCs interesting rather than kidnapping or killing them or burning them up? All right, peace out.